Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. We are talking today about converting percents, decimals, and fractions. This is lesson 7. Students will be able to convert between fractions, decimals, and percents. There's no doubt that people today are addicted to smartphones. Here are some statistics. 80% of 18 to 24-year-olds sleep with their phone next to them. So the question here is write 80% in simplified radical form. So we have to know that percent means per 100. So 80% means 80 per 100 or 80 out of 100. If we're going to put that in lowest terms, we can divide both the numerator and denominator by 10 and go with 8/10, or divide by 20 right off the bat and go with 4/5. Write it in decimal form. Well, if we know it's 80% per 100, that is the same as 80 hundredths, or just 0.8. So our best answers, 4/5 and 0.8 in lowest terms. We've also got that 44% of people stated they could not even survive one day without their phone. 58% of men and 47% of women suffer from nomophobia, the fear of being without a smartphone. And 1 in 2 people say they will check their phones if they wake up in the middle of the night. Not me. Explain how to change from the fraction form to the decimal form. So there are some that you may have memorized, but if you don't, the easiest way to do that is to divide the numerator by the denominator. So for example, if you have 4/5 as a fraction, that is the same as 4 divided by 5, and you would have to do some long division. Explain how to change from the percent form to the decimal form. Now this one's pretty easy. Percent, in this case we had 80%, and I wanted to change. Number one, we could read 80% and say it's 80 hundredths, or 0.80. The other way to do that is to move the decimal point 2 places to the left. And we'll look at that. If we did 80% and we took the decimal point at the end of 80 and just moved it 2 places left, we would end up with 0.8 or 0.80. Write the following decimals as fractions in lowest terms. So the easiest way to do this is to actually read it out loud. So this one, 0.7, is read 7/10. 7 over 10 for 7/10. This one, you'll notice, goes to 2 places. So this one is 65, and it's in the hundredths place. And we can go to lowest terms by dividing both the numerator and denominator by 5. Now this one is 2 and 6/10. So 2 and 6/10 separates our whole number from the fraction. So lowest terms would be 2 and 3/5. But it says write the following decimals as fractions. So if I needed just a fraction answer, 5 times 2 is 10 plus 3. 13/5 would be an improper fraction, and that would be worth the same as 2.6. Last but not least, 4.805, or 4 and 805 thousandths. So 4 and 805 over 1,000. If I divide both the numerator and denominator by 5, I get 4 and 161 200ths, and I can put that into an improper fraction. 200 times 4 is 800, plus the extra 161 for 961 200ths. Write the following decimals in percent form. Here's where we just have to move our decimal point. So 0.78 or 78 hundredths, if I move it 2 places to the right, notice this is decimal back to percent, that would be 78%. 0.3 or 3/10, if I move it 2 places, that would be 30%. 0.07, if I move it 2 places, it's not 0.7, it's just 7. And 1.54, being that it is over 1, it is going to be over 100%. If I move it the same 2 places to the right, 154%. Write the following fractions in decimal form and show your work. Now, 9 over 25. I could do 9 over 25 and divide 9 by 25 and do long division. I also noticed that 25 easily can convert to 100. So if I do times 4 times 4, I get 36 over 100, which is 0.36, right? 36 hundredths. 5/9. This is one of the ones we memorized in MSM2. Anything with the ninths is just the numerator repeating. So that's one that I probably have memorized. Fourths. Anything with fourths is easy because that means it's some multiple of 25%. So 15/4 is the same as 3 3/4, or 3/4 being 75%, 3.75. Last but not least, you're coming upon ones that you just have to do the long division for. This one would be 6 divided by 11. We'd need some extra digits on there in order to get our answer, which is 0.54 repeating. Last but not least in this section, write the following percents in decimal form. So now we're going from percent down to decimal. We have to move our decimal point 2 places in the opposite direction, 0.40 or 0.4. With 3%, the decimal point is right after the 3. If I move it 2 places, 0.03. Notice it's 3 hundredths, 3%, 3 out of 100. 124%. If I move it 2 places, it's 1.24, which makes sense. It's over 100%, so it's over one whole. Last but not least, 65%, move it 2 places, 0.65. So short, easy rules for each of those. To find the actual percent of a number, you could use a proportion, and this was also focused on heavily in MSM2. But a simpler method is to multiply the percentage in decimal form by the number that represents the whole amount. So we've got 24% of 200. We know that 24% is the same as 0.24. We also know that the word of typically means multiplication. So we could just do 24% as a decimal, of meaning multiplication, and then the 200. So 24%, 0.24 times 200 gives us 48. So 24% of 200 is worth 48. Now, if you were going to use the proportion, you would say, what number out of 200, the of number goes on the bottom, is 24% out of 100%. Your parts go on the top, your wholes go on the bottom, and then you would cross multiply. Hopefully this looks familiar. And then the other direction as well, 200 times 24, and you would solve. 100x equals 4,800. Now when you divide both sides by 100, you get x equals 48. Same answer, a different way of doing it. So you can either multiply, remember this has to be the decimal version, multiplied by the number you want to find the percent of. So find 82% of 50, we would do the decimal version of 82%, 0.82 times 50, and we would get 41. What is 32% of 120? 0.32 is the decimal form times 120, and the answer would be 38.4. Both of those problems could be done with a proportion, but notice much, much faster by doing this way. Then you have a nice little reminder list of how we go about converting things with the rule written in words, and then a sample question underneath it. And all of these go along with the notes that are on the front. So I will see you all in class.